what advice do you have for the other techies out there that are aspiring to hone their skills for film productions?
The keys for what I do, the first things I learned about was how human perception works, how our eyes work. You know, we run normally around 43 frames a second in our visual record system, organic system. There's a delay between our audio input and our video input. And how humans perceive the world. And if you really get into the organics and how that works, you can mess with it. And also how images and media is captured. There's a lot of things that happen when a camera is taking these still frames, and what happens with time as these still frames are captured and then presented back to you sequentially. You add in compression and it gets even weirder. And so understanding from a core root level of how we capture and reproduce media and how we receive that media. When you really get your mind wrapped around that, then you can really start to mess with it. And the other thing is that to anybody new coming into the business, the most basic skill is learning. There are things that I work with today that hadn't been thought of 40 years ago. And there are things I worked with 40 years ago that don't exist today. But the concepts are the same. You have a camera. It's a thing that takes light in the front and stores it somehow or modifies it somehow. It might be going into crystals, modifying the valence layer of crystals on a piece of polyester, or it might be going in and getting turned into bits to go down a line. But it's still, you're capturing an image and transforming it into a way that you can store and move and modify it. And a display, you could have a projector, a laser projector, an LCD screen, an OLED screen, a plasma screen, whatever. It's still a thing that takes the signal and makes light again and makes pictures. And in the middle, there's cables. It could be an SDI cable, or what I'm doing right now for this big studio is all IP video. There's no SDI cables in this post-editing facility. It's all networked video.
IP video, I'm sorry, what does that stand for?
Internet protocol. And it's all,
that's what I thought it was the layman's. I didn't want to assume that.
So instead of having a router that has a bunch of video signals going in and out of it, all of these signals just go onto the network, and a network router moves them around. But you don't have this hardware with all these cables. It all just goes into the network. But the concept is the same. There's still a flow. Now it's called a flow instead of a SDI cable. And that flow comes from a source like a camera or a player or a computer or whatever. And it goes through the system and it gets routed, and it might go into a thing that mixes it with another thing and puts 3 pictures up on the screen. And then that flow continues on. And that flow goes to a receiver that then goes to a screen or something, or to a webcasting device or a Zoom device or whatever. But the concepts are the same. And so if you can understand and look at things from the very simple concept of what the goal is of capture image, do something with it, display image, then you're 3/4 of the way into understanding whatever the new technology is. So when they come out with the dilithium crystal camera, you'll still be able to understand that, because it's getting light, putting light out. And then there's elements of that technology, like the tripod and the camera head. Whatever that capture thing is, it's still going to need a thing to sit on and a way to move it around and point it. I have a set of sticks and a head that are 45 years old. And I was getting some parts for the tripod. That model of tripod is still in current manufacture. It hasn't been changed because it still works. It still sits there. And so you break everything down to the core basic level, and then you have to play sponge. You just, I RTFM all the time, and now we have Google. You can go and do a search on things. You can find the manual. Sometimes you have to register or whatever, but you can download and you can read up on the thing. And I suck that stuff up. And the technicians that I hire, the people that I like to call back and work with me, are like, I saw one of our new electricians on the Matrix set, and rather than sitting there telling jokes or reading a book while he wasn't needed on set, he had one of the new DMX lights sitting there with him, and he's looking at the manual on the phone and poking at things on the light and learning how it works.
Yeah.
And that is the person who's going to work on my crew, because a new thing comes along. I may not have time to tell them. I might not know how it works.
Yeah. If you want to do it, then do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Own it.
And I think that's great advice too, because I think it's so easy to cop out on like researching what you want to do, because like, oh, well, it's just going to change by the time I get there, or there's no reason. The principles remain the same. And I love what you said about you're already 3/4 of the way there. If you come into a new technology with a basic understanding of where it's coming from, then you're already got a head start. It's much easier to go from 4 feet to 6 feet in the pool than it is it's easy to dive in, but not if you don't like cold water.
That's not true.
Yeah.